So, what happened to Emerson, Lake, and Palmer? Let's go back to the beginning. The year was 1970. Progressive rock was in full bloom, and musicians were starting to look beyond the traditional guitar bass drum setup. Keith Emerson, already known for his wild stage antics and classical inspired keyboard work with the Nice, wanted something bigger, more symphonic, more theatrical. He found a kindred spirit in Greg Lake, who had just made waves as the bassist and vocalist of King Crimson. The two bonded over a shared desire to create something new. They originally wanted Jimi Hendrix to join as their guitarist. Yes, that Jimi Hendrix. There's even a myth that the group would have been called Help, Hendrix, Emerson, Lake, and Palmer, but that dream never materialized. Eventually, they brought in Carl Palmer, the dynamic drummer from Atomic Rooster and the crazy world of Arthur Brown. And so, the supergroup was born. From the start, ELP was different. No guitar, just Emerson's massive arsenal of keyboards, Lake's lush vocals and poetic lyrics, and Palmer's precise and thunderous drumming. Their 1970 self-titled debut album was successful, featuring the epic Take a Pebble and the explosive reinterpretation of Mussorgsky's pictures at an exhibition. It also included their first single, Lucky Man, an acoustic ballad that Lake wrote when he was 12. It reached number 48 on the Billboard Hot 100. Their second gig took place on 29th August, with a set at the Isle of Wight Festival, which was attended by an estimated 600,000 people and drew considerable attention from the public and music press. But it was their second album, Tarkus, in 1971, that defined them. Side 1 was a 20-minute conceptual suite about a half armadillo, half tank creature. Yeah, it was that kind of band. But musically, it was a tour de force. The band's third album, Pictures at an Exhibition, was released as a budget album in the UK in November 1971. Atlantic Records declined to release it in the US, claiming it would not sell or receive any radio airplay because of its classical orientation, and offered to release it on its sister label Nonesuch Records, which handled budget, classical, and avant-garde albums. They followed it up with Trilogy and Brain Salad Surgery, which included their most iconic track, Carn Evil 9. You may recognize the line, "Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends." That was peak ELP. They were selling out arenas, fusing classical and rock in ways no one had done before, and Emerson was stabbing his keyboards with knives on stage. This was prog rock as spectacle. On April 6, 1974, the band headlined the inaugural California Jam Festival at the Ontario Motor Speedway, California, to an attendance of 250,000 people. But with all things that rise quickly, eventually they come down. By the mid-70s, the very things that made ELP brilliant, elaborate compositions, long solos, expensive stage productions, started to weigh them down. The triple live album, Welcome Back, My Friends, was a sign of their excess. Then came Works Volume 1, where each member took a side of vinyl to themselves, and then Works Volume 2, a mixed bag of leftovers. One of the two group tracks, Fanfare for the Common Man, is a cover of the same titled orchestral piece by Aaron Copland, who permitted to have the band to release it. In November 1977, Works Volume 2 was released as a compilation of shorter tracks recorded from 1973 to 1976 during various album recording sessions. They released a live album in 1979 entitled Emerson, Lake, and Palmer in Concert that reached number 73 in the US. The chemistry was fading, and audiences were losing interest as punk and disco changed the musical landscape. They broke up in 1979 after the critically panned Love Beach album, recorded in the Bahamas with visible discomfort from all members. It was a sour note to end on. but they didn't stay apart for long. The band reunited in the early 90s and even released a new album, Black Moon, in 1992, followed by Live at the Royal Albert Hall in 1993 and in the Hot Seat in 1994. Later in 1993, Victory Music released The Return of the Manticore, a four-disc box set retrospective of the band's career and previously unreleased studio tracks, including a new studio recording of Pictures at an Exhibition in Dolby Surround Sound. While these albums didn't reach the heights of their earlier work, they reignited some fan interest and led to a series of tours. One notable sidestep was the formation of Emerson, Lake and Powell in 1985, with Cozy Powell replacing Carl Palmer, who was tied up with Asia at the time. They even had a single that charted on the Billboard Hot 100, which was the song Touch and Go. There was even a very short-lived version called 3 with Emerson, Palmer, and Robert Barry. The final proper ELP concert took place in 2010 at the High Voltage Festival in London, marking their 40th anniversary. It wasn't a perfect performance, some of the fire was missing, but it was a fitting bookend to a legendary career. Later in 2010, the 4 CD box set A Time and a Place was released, which features live tracks from 1970 to 1998. An archival concert followed in 2011, Nassau Coliseum 78. Sadly, time has not been kind to ELP's lineup. Keith Emerson struggled for years with nerve damage in his hand that made performing difficult and painful. Despite that, he kept composing and performing. In 2016, he died by suicide, a tragic end for one of rock's most inventive keyboardists. Just months later, in December 2016, Greg Lake passed away after a battle with cancer. His voice, which had once brought such majesty to songs like Lucky Man and From the Beginning, was silenced too soon. Carl Palmer, the lone surviving member, has dedicated himself to keeping the ELP legacy alive. He tours under the banner Carl Palmer's ELP Legacy, reinterpreting their music with a new band and even incorporating video tributes to Emerson and Lake. It's clear that he still believes in the magic they made together. So, what happened to Emerson, Lake, and Palmer? They burned bright, made music that defied the norm, and left behind a catalog that still inspires musicians today. They were pioneers. Yes, they were bombastic, excessive, even polarizing, but they were never boring. And in a world of cookie-cutter hits, that's something worth remembering. So, here's to the show that never ends, even if its players are no longer with us.